Some people don't feel lonely in silence. They feel exposed in noise. There's a quiet truth many never say out loud. Sometimes the crowd is where the loneliness actually begins. If this feels familiar, you might want to pause here, maybe subscribe, and stay with this kind of conversation a little longer, because understanding your mind is a journey, not a moment. Have you ever wondered why being alone feels like relief instead of absence? You've probably been in a room full of people, laughter bouncing off the walls, conversations overlapping, yet something inside you slowly withdrew. You smiled when expected, nodded at the right moments, but your mind drifted somewhere quieter, somewhere safer. Or maybe you've noticed how after social events, instead of feeling energized, you feel drained, like something essential was taken from you. And when you finally return home, close the door, and sit in silence, your body exhales in a way it never could in the crowd. This isn't because you dislike people. It's because your inner world is louder than the outside one. There's a deep emotional pattern here that often goes unnoticed. You don't avoid crowds because you're weak or antisocial. You avoid them because you experience them differently. Where others feel stimulation, you feel saturation. Where others feel connection, you sometimes feel disconnection from yourself. Psychologists often describe this through the lens of introversion, a concept explored by Carl Jung, who suggested that some people draw energy inward rather than outward. It's not about shyness. It's about where your mind feels most alive. Research has also shown that people who prefer solitude often have higher sensitivity to external stimuli, meaning their brains process social environments more deeply and intensely. Another study suggests that time alone can increase emotional regulation and creativity, allowing the mind to reset and reorganize itself. When you look closely, patterns begin to emerge in your behavior. You might notice that you prefer meaningful one-on-one conversations over large group interactions, that you often observe more than you speak, quietly analyzing dynamics others don't even notice. You may find yourself needing long periods of solitude after socializing, not as a luxury but as a necessity. And sometimes you feel misunderstood, as if others assume your silence is disinterest when it's actually depth. It's like being a deep ocean in a world that celebrates waves. The surface noise doesn't reflect the richness below, and not everyone has the patience to dive. But there's also a quiet struggle in this. Because while solitude feels safe, the world doesn't always understand it. You may have been told to come out more, to be more social, to stop isolating, as if your natural state is something to fix. That pressure can slowly create doubt, making you question whether your comfort in solitude is something wrong. And over time, that doubt can grow into a subtle tension between who you are and who you think you're supposed to be. As time passes, this tension doesn't disappear. It evolves. You start to notice how you split yourself depending on the environment. In crowds, you become a version of yourself that fits, that adapts, that participates just enough to belong, but it never feels fully authentic. Then, in solitude, you return to your real self, the one that doesn't need to perform, the one that can think freely without interruption. This constant shifting can become exhausting, not physically, but mentally. It's like holding your breath in social spaces and only exhaling when you're alone. There's also a deeper emotional layer that often goes unspoken. You don't just enjoy being alone, you feel understood by your own presence in a way others rarely match. Your thoughts feel clearer. Your emotions feel more honest. In crowds, there's often a subtle pressure to respond, to react, to keep up with the rhythm of interaction, but your mind doesn't move at that pace. It moves slower, deeper, more deliberately. This creates a gap between you and the environment, a quiet distance that others might not even notice. Over time, this can lead to a sense of alienation, not because you are disconnected from people, but because the connection rarely reaches the depth you need. Psychologically, this relates to what researchers call depth of processing, where individuals who think more introspectively require more meaningful engagement to feel connected. Studies suggest that people who prefer solitude often score higher in reflective thinking, meaning they process experiences internally before expressing them externally. This isn't avoidance. It's a different rhythm of engagement. You may also notice subtle signs in your daily life. You might cancel plans not because you don't care, but because the thought of extended social interaction feels overwhelming. You might feel more energized after reading, creating, or simply sitting with your thoughts than after hours of conversation. And sometimes, you might even feel guilty for preferring your own company, as if you're breaking an unspoken social rule. This guilt can slowly build into a quiet conflict within you, because part of you knows that solitude is where you thrive, but another part fears what it means. What if staying in your comfort zone keeps you from growth? What if your preference for being alone turns into isolation without you realizing it? These questions don't have simple answers, and that uncertainty can deepen the emotional weight of your experience. It's like standing at the edge of two worlds, belonging fully to neither. But somewhere within this tension, there's also a moment of awareness waiting to emerge. A moment where you begin to question not your nature, but the assumptions surrounding it. That moment of awareness is subtle. It doesn't arrive with clarity or certainty. It begins as a quiet realization that maybe nothing is wrong with you. Maybe the discomfort you feel in crowds is not a flaw, but a signal. A signal that your mind values depth over noise, presence over performance, authenticity over conformity. When you start to see it this way, something shifts internally. You stop trying to force yourself into environments that drain you without purpose, and instead begin to understand your boundaries as a form of self-respect. This doesn't mean withdrawing from the world. It means engaging with it differently. It means recognizing that solitude is not the absence of connection, but a different kind of connection, one that starts within. Psychologists have found that individuals who are comfortable with solitude often develop stronger self-awareness, which can lead to more intentional relationships. When you no longer depend on external validation to feel complete, your interactions become more genuine, more selective, and often more meaningful. There's a quiet strength in that. But it also requires honesty, because solitude can become a refuge or a hiding place, depending on how you use it. And the line between the two is not always clear. This is where gentle reflection becomes important, not as a rule, but as a question you carry with you. Are you choosing solitude because it nourishes you or because it protects you from something you're avoiding? The answer doesn't need to be immediate. It unfolds over time, through small moments of awareness. Maybe you begin to allow yourself to stay a little longer in conversations that feel safe. Maybe you choose quality over quantity when it comes to social interactions. Or maybe you simply stop apologizing for needing time alone. These are not drastic changes. They are quiet adjustments that align you more closely with who you are. And in that alignment, something begins to settle within you. The pressure fades. The conflict softens. You no longer feel the need to explain your nature to everyone around you, because you understand it yourself. In the end, being happier alone than in a crowd is not a limitation. It's a different way of experiencing the world, a slower, deeper, more intentional way. And while it may not always be understood, it doesn't need to be. Because the peace you find in your own presence is not something the crowd can give you. It's something you were never meant to lose.